Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dig into something that every single one of us experiences. Well, every single minute of the day, our emotions. We're going to decode the language of our feelings, and, with a little bit of science, we'll help you build a map to your very own emotional world. So, have you ever felt this way? You're not alone if you have. Our emotions can really feel like this mysterious force, right? One moment you're perfectly calm, and the next you're hit with this wave of anger that seems to come out of absolutely nowhere. And it leads to reactions that, maybe you regret later. But what if it wasn't a mystery at all? What if there was a predictable system behind the whole thing? That's what we're going to tackle today. That feeling of being controlled by our emotions instead of actually understanding them. And by the end of this explainer, I promise you'll have a practical toolkit to figure out why you feel what you feel and how to get so much better at reading the emotional signals in everyone around you. We've broken it all down into 6 parts. First, we'll start with what I like to call the emotional operating system, basically the mechanics behind your feelings. Then we'll uncover what actually triggers them and what their real purpose is. And finally, we're going to do a deep dive into 7 core emotions, everything from sadness and anger to surprise and enjoyment. So let's get started. Okay, part 1, the emotional operating system. To understand any emotion, we first really need to look at the automatic process that sparks it inside our brain. So the first piece of this system is something called the autoappraiser. Just think of it like an unconscious scanner, and it's always running in the background of your mind. It is constantly scanning everything you see, hear, and feel for anything that might be important to your survival. And it works way faster than your conscious thought. It's the reason you jump back from a snake before you've even had time to think, oh, that's a snake. So what happens when those scanners actually find a trigger? Well, they activate what's called an effect program. This is kind of like an inherited emotional blueprint that directs your entire response. It tells your face how to move, your voice how to change, your body what to do. But here's the crucial part. While these blueprints are inherited, they are not set in stone. Our life experiences are constantly updating them, and that's what creates our unique emotional personalities. And the last piece of our emotional OS is the refractory period. Now, when an emotion really takes over, our thinking becomes biased. We can only see things that confirm that feeling. If you're really angry at someone, your brain will literally filter out any evidence that you might be wrong. Instead, it'll start recalling every other annoying thing they've ever done. Now, this helps us focus, but if you let it last too long, it can lead to some major regrets. So, to put it all together, it works like this. Your autoappraiser senses a trigger, which then activates an emotional program, which then expresses the feeling through your face, your voice, your body, and it all happens in the blink of an eye. This leads us directly to our next key idea. Part 2, emotional triggers. Now that we know the how, let's look at the what. So what are these triggers that our autoappraisers are constantly scanning for? Well, it turns out they come in 2 main flavors. On one hand, we have universal triggers. These are broad survival themes that are kind of baked into our DNA, things like the threat of physical harm or the loss of someone we love. And then, on the other hand, we have learned triggers. These are the specific ways our personal lives give shape to those big themes. For example, the universal fear trigger is threat of harm, but for you, your learned trigger might be a mugger in a dark alley, while for someone else, it might be a wild pig in the forest. It's the same theme, just a different trigger. And triggers aren't just about what's happening right here, right now. Emotions can be sparked in so many other ways, from just remembering a past event to feeling empathy for somebody else. And maybe the most surprising one? Research shows that just intentionally making a facial expression, like forcing yourself to smile, can actually start to generate the feeling itself. Part 3, the purpose of emotion. So we know how emotions work, and we know what triggers them. But why? Why do we even have them? It's really easy to think of our feelings as irrational or unhelpful, but they are absolutely essential tools for our survival. Each emotion is basically a rapid response system for a key life event. Fear is there for protection. Sadness signals a need for help, and that strengthens our social bonds. Anger motivates us to overcome obstacles. Disgust helps us avoid contamination. And enjoyment, well, it encourages us to repeat whatever's good for us. The bottom line is our emotions aren't random at all. They're adaptive tools. Part 4, sadness and anger. Okay, now let's really dissect 7 of these core emotions, one by one. We're going to start with 2 of the most powerful, sadness and anger. First up, sadness. Its universal trigger is the loss of something really important. A person, a job, maybe your health. Its function is to signal to others that you need comfort. Now, the most reliable, hard-to-fake sign isn't a downturned mouth. It's the eyebrows. Look for the inner corners to be pulled up and angled. That is the truest signal of sadness.
Next, let's look at anger. The most common trigger for anger is interference. Something is blocking you from a goal you really care about. Its function is to warn others and to motivate you to create change. The key expression, again, is in the eyebrows, but it's the total opposite of sadness. In anger, the brows are pulled down and squeezed together.
Part 5, Surprise, Fear, and Disgust. Next up, we have a trio of emotions that act as our alert and aversion system. That's surprise, fear, and disgust.
People confuse surprise and fear all the time, but the difference is actually really simple once you know where to look. Surprise is just a brief reaction to something unexpected. The eyebrows go up in a high curve and the jaw drops. Fear, on the other hand, is a reaction to a threat. The eyebrows still go up, but they're also pulled together, which makes them look flat and straight, and the lips stretch sideways into this tight line. Next is disgust. Now, this one started as a physical reaction to things that could poison us, like spoiled food. But what's really fascinating is how we've expanded it to moral contamination. We can feel disgusted by a cruel act or a hypocritical idea. The expression is unmistakable. The nose wrinkles up and the upper lip rises.
And this brings us to our final section, where we're going to examine two very social emotions: contempt, which is all about status, and enjoyment, which is about genuine joy.
Contempt is pretty unique. It's an emotion that's only felt toward people, not things or ideas. It stems from a feeling of moral superiority. And its expression is one of the most powerful social signals there is. It's a simple one-sided smirk, where just one lip corner tightens and raises up. And finally, enjoyment. We all smile, but how can you tell a real, genuine smile from a polite, social one? Well, the secret isn't in the mouth, it's in the eyes. A polite smile is just the lips. A true, genuine smile, what scientists call a Duchenne smile, involves the muscles around the eyes. They contract, they push up the cheeks, and they create what we call crow's feet. That muscle around the eye is almost impossible to fake, which makes it the ultimate tell for real joy.
So let's just recap our new emotional toolkit. We've learned that emotions are automatic responses to triggers, and they serve these critical survival functions. We now know that 7 core emotions have universal expressions, and we can spot the key signs: the angled up eyebrows of sadness, the lowered brows of anger, and the crinkled eyes of a true smile. Recognizing these signals is a huge step toward mastering your emotional world.
And that brings us to the end, so I'll just leave you with a question to think about. How will this new map of emotions change your daily interactions? Will you be able to spot the true signals of sadness in a friend, or maybe recognize the trigger for your own anger? Let us know what you think in the comments below. We really do love to hear how you're applying this stuff. If you found this explainer helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more dives into the science of being human. Thanks so much for watching.